Be aware. This book is not written to foment hate, but on the contrary to free us from it. Could be misinterpreted if not read in its entirety. The Book of Knowledge or the New Book of Wisdom. With the following we want to show the simple facts that will make life and judgmental attitude equal for all being kind. In this time of great changes we can begin to observe how the belief system influences the mind of all beings and realize the needed steps to be taken in order to assure the continuation of all species in harmony with the cosmos. To begin this process, we must assume an investigating attitude and move aside any type sectarian, racial, political, religious indoctrination and any other type of assumptions based on plain belief. We must instead use our logic to find the simple truth based on experiences and material evidences in order to find and share a common sense based on facts. Only then we can begin to understand and be able to simply change the systems and replace them with what is best for all. In this time of great changes we can begin to observe how the belief system influences the mind of all beings and realize the needed steps to be taken to break the chain of insanity and deception and assure the continuation of all species in harmony with the cosmos and nature. To begin to understand the effects of spiritual stories, religions, and fairy tales that influence the mind of our societies, we must understand their origins and realize their true aim and meanings. Thanks to archaeological findings here on Earth, we can now prove that already before the coming of the monotheistic cults, the all-planet was practicing so-called polytheist worshipping. We all understand the main difference between the two is caused by the fact that while polytheism is spreading the consciousness of people by sharing veneration and rituals to different entities or elements, monotheism concentrates the powers in two single elements, God and evil. To begin our understanding of the material effects of those so-called cults, mythologies, and religions, we must start by examining the meaning of the word religion, word that in the modern vocabulary tells it all. The word religion so is composed by two main parts. The first, re, which means king, or doing something again, and the second, legion, or in correct English, legion. By putting together the two, according to this interpretation, the real meaning of the word becomes the king legion or the again legion. So-called main monotheistic religions in fact are the basis for the creation of the first single king system, and its origins here on earth are Judaic and beginning around 3,800 years ago according to the Jewish historical references in our modern calendar. Monotheism. Monotheism is the father of the concept of evil as a supernatural power of obscure forces that is to fear and even kill by extreme ways. It incorporates the absurd right to torture and kill as part of something that supposedly God wants or is in order to allegedly win over evil. Monotheism creates therefore the concept of evil and imposes his way over logic and understanding by means of evil belief, which are considered by believers more holy and true than any scientific proof or evidence. The root of this illogic way is much deeper than anybody can think. For example, we are all using words like devil, hell, Satan, and automatically associating them to means of evil, a kind of evil that we have being putting in our brain as a supernatural force that is greater than mankind. Monotheistic religions like so create an abstract border between those two forces and keeps beings behind one or the other based on religion preference. It is evident that in an evolved society there cannot be or should be any borders, and if all people should live in peace and harmony, there cannot be any type of religious discrimination. We should open our eyes and admit the facts. All religions must be reformed to achieve peace. By logic, there cannot be any equality or balance when tribal division rules the world. Hate is clearly a phenomenon that we seem to deem as natural consequence of evil or the result of wrong action committed by someone or something, while if we stop and think about its existence, we come to face the fact that hate is nothing but a reaction caused by ignorance. It is evident that nature brings us to want to understand, prevent, and correct any type of evil, and that hate is the fruit of ignorance. For the fact that we all can understand reasons of mistakes strikingly as an ignorance reaction. Many phrases can make us understand the truth behind the fact. Here I will mention a few common ones that we all must understand. The first fact is that what goes around comes around. The second is that hate can never be a peaceful solution to a problem. And third one, a phrase that we all been hearing before, an eye for an eye makes everybody blind. Those simple phrases contain the essence of the basis of communal understanding that makes us all humans above all type of indoctrination, and we must all agree to something, that it is logic and understandable through physical evidences if we want to evolve into a true humane or cosmic society instead of being stuck in tribal and sectarian bloody cults or absurd religions that are tearing society, man and our planet apart. The three monotheistic religions. The Jew Semite. The Jews, who's originally a traveling group, or gypsies coming to and traveling from Rajasthan, Punjab, and Haryana, India. From them came two main lines, one that remained gypsy and kept on traveling, and even when settling in different countries kept their ethnic costumes and tradition, while the other traveled to Egypt and remained there since then, living together and well protected by their fellows Arabs till 1948. In 1948, the State of Israel was founded, and the Jews proclaimed their new-founded state a Jewish one where they want to keep ultimate power over people of different cults, and decided to take ultimate possession of those same lands in the Middle East, where for generations they have been freely traveling like gypsies and dealing with the local people. Since the foundation of the State of Israel, statehood was recognized then by the world leaders that could exercise their power over the rule of the people. The Israelis have slowly stolen over 80% over the Palestinian territories and lands, together with vast areas of the neighbor countries, and deported millions of people in concentration camps like Gaza, where in 2011 people are still living imprisoned and under constant bombardment and fire from the Israeli army. To understand the insanity and brutality of such a religious clan, we must be aware of some essential facts. The tribe that later was becoming the Jew were in fact a group departing from India about 4,500 years ago. From there they brought the alchemic formulas, knowledge and symbols, which they later used to create their anti-pagan and bloody sectarian monotheistic cult that we call nowadays religion. The story tells that according to their own history and genetic similarity, the Jews were a group of traveling gypsies, and that around 4,000 years ago arrived in Egypt, and because they were serving the pharaohs and using their stonework and counting abilities, they were allowed to keep their traveling circus tents and stay. History teaches us that after the long and exhausting travel from India, some of them decided to stay in Egypt, where they lived like nomads, taking care of trade and traveling and moving their entire village around that area for centuries. After many years of coexistence there, they started to mix with the Egyptians and eventually managed to infiltrate the pharaoh family, from which they began their new so-called religion and changed the old system, polytheistic, into a new one, monotheistic. In this new system, you could no longer devote yourself to a particular entity and or venerate many elements like natural for those times, but instead everybody had to venerate one god and only be so-called god worshipper. For this was recreated a story of Enoch the baptizer, son Horus, representing the sun and the positive, and Seth, which represents the night and evil. Doing so, the night became associated with evil, and all type of star worship or calendar study was becoming a strict and small elite thing, while normal people were now no longer allowed to study or to be connected through the stars. This story marks the true beginning of evil empire and the first Inquisition, or the beginning of the first dark ages on our planet. Because the night was turned into the symbol of darkness, now intended as evil, the ruling caste could then fully control the movement and mind of society, now frightened by stories to them told and preached, and the new restriction imposed on them by means of murder, committed allegedly in the name of God. So while in Egypt, in order to create a physical and mental difference between them and the rest of the world, the Jew scripts tells us that Abraham, after nearly murdering one of his sons, Isaac, in sacrifice to the evil forces, psychopathic or insane energies, decided to cut the link between the foreskin or hat and the capella or dick or prick head, and declaring by that to officially cut a connection to the earthly gods and according to him separate man from animals. This particular practice is clearly aimed at disabling and traumatizing the children in order to create a blood-bound that blinds them to humanity. Evidently, such a child is kept for the all life, and it manifests itself into a total fear, inferiority, or a deep mistrust, and in some cases even hate towards those which are sane. To prevent that such a practice would have been adopted by the Roman Empire and to protect the integrity of the Jews, they were kept as active members of society, known to be specialized in stoneworks and money changing and dealing, and for maintaining them as the tribe of Benjamin or Aryan, from Haryana and Rajasthan in India. One of the Roman Empire main slogan became, mens sana in corpore sano, a sane mind in a sane or intact hell and root body. This is the true essence of the semi or semi-cult that nowadays we are told to be instead an ethnic difference of language and forbidden to do any type of investigation of such a matter by automatically labeling people that question its genuinity according to their books as anti-Semite, a crime punishable by law in many parts of our planet. If we stop and reflect to the simple actions carried out by the Semite rituals, it comes evident that so-called circumcision is mutilation and that goes against true human nature and physics, and its implementation is an abomination, especially when practiced on infants. The fact that Jews and later Arabs from the Jews when they converted to Muslims have been transforming what is clearly a barbaric blood ritual such as the mutilation of the infant's ritual into a belief system shows us how evil becomes materialized and venerated while nature rejected and seen as something to use and abuse till the end of the earthly life for the Jews, and a path based on suffering and blood for the Muslims that believe similarly to the Christians in the afterlife. Also clear is the fact that such unnatural and literally insane, not sane or intact, bloody practice is done in order to indoctrinate and create such a physical separation from the rest of the world and from all previously understood concepts of logic, common sense, and understanding, and that such a practice must be understood in its physical integrity and naturally abolished. Another important ritual to learn about in order to understand the extent of the insanity of the Jewish religion is called Kapparat, during which they kill a chicken and sprinkle its blood by swinging the decapitated volatile in circles over one's head. This ritual is supposed to clean the Jews from all bad deeds they have done in their life. Basically, after they are covered in blood, they are told to think they have been purified from evil and that all bad things they have done are washed away with the chicken's blood. Can you picture it? To realize such terrible facts is an essential step into the understanding of the extent of the mind control exercised on the children of such society and begin the necessary healing required to close such wounds for all beings. Also, one thing that shows that the Jewish religion is not fit for a democratic or evolved society is shown the fact that also teaches to consider as animals Muslims and less than animals Gentiles, and this is clearly stated in all their holy books and laws that portrait the Jews as the only true sons of God and indoctrinate them to a sectarian concept of so-called chosen people not for merits but purely on religious and ethnic preferences. Christianity. The second religion that must be examined is the so-called Christian religion, the one that has already been most reformed to be allegedly suitable to the modern era of society. We must begin by realizing that Christianity is a creation of the Jewish and Roman society of the 4th century AD, and that was originally electing Jesus or Isa, the breather, to a living God, and then rearranging itself to a long process into a 100% monotheistic cult that venerates one God and one belief over varying any type of logic and understanding. As we all know, Christianity was imposed through the centuries through violent imposition of its philo-Judaic laws and believes of an origin of all monotheism in Egypt and claiming the ultimate truth to the scripts of the Old and New Testament or Bibles. We all aware of the amount of death and destruction that was brought through the Inquisition, which have imposed a Christian belief system to the world. We also know that Christianity is a constantly changing religion that tries to incorporate the common compassion and universal love feeling to a system of beliefs that impose limitation of consciousness and creation of evil as an entity that exists in nature in the form of some devil and some hell, where people get made to do bad things by and those that don't pay taxes go to. Christianity, just like Muslim and Hebraic religions, also focus its attention to a place called Jerusalem, a place that had been pride of civilization longer before the coming of the Jews. The Temple of Solomon had been standing there much before the coming of the Abraham era, and for what we know today from archaeological findings, civilization that predeceases the date claimed to be origin of mankind, according to the date given by the Testaments or Bibles. We also know about several different Bibles that have been written and kept in different places like Ethiopia, Jerusalem, and Rome, and that every other book beside the Torah Bible and the later Quran has been destroyed by the Judeo-Egyptians and followed by the Judeo and Roman Inquisition period. We also know that in Europe, this type of Inquisition was going on until the beginning of the Second World War, time in which for the first time in the history of Christianity, books could be published and distributed without the approval of the Pope in Rome or bishop for him. For centuries, armies searched for books that was lacking a visa or veto of approval from the Church. All those books which did not have such an approval seal were deemed satanic, witchcrafting and devil propaganda, and when found were burned. Also often alone one of those books would be thrown in the fire with it. This assured a full control and monopole of the information system and was carried out in great scales through the destruction of many holy libraries like for example Alexandria of Egypt and Syracuse by the hand of the Judaic-Roman Inquisitions. So by destroying all the old scripts, they could also be almost totally controlling history, and those who had gained power through blood could easily maintain it by removing all inconvenient evidences of any prior civilization existence to their bloody and unnatural dictatorial religion concept. The period of the so-called witch hunting lasted many centuries. Only after the Second World War, with the coming of the democracy, people were for the first time allowed to slowly investigate history, and the Bible was reformed to suit it and control the society not from a front row, but now from behind the scene. For the first time in history since the coming of the dictatorial system, people of every social status could study more books, which were now provided not only by the Church, but also by several elite Masons, which many of still own some of the largest printing companies today. Back from this bit of history, we must now analyze the myth of Christianity and the orientation imposed by such a cult. Christians in fact believe that our earthly life is followed by an afterlife that we are told to call paradise or hell, and that in between the two there is a so-called purgatory. By doing so, man belief becomes the strongest element of his spiritual or emotional force and life, and on such base we are told to think that our immortal life is made for suffering and walking in the path to a salvation that should reach us in the afterlife. This concept clearly separates the reality of a material paradise in the planet as the planet Earth into an assumption of a mortal life of suffering and fear, where if we do some heavy mistakes, we will be condemned to burn in hell for eternity. Another element that most people of the 21st century are not yet aware of is that many of the terminology used by the Christians nowadays is made up of words and symbols which have a completely different meaning during the pagan or polytheistic era that preceded the Judeo era. To find the true meaning of such words, we have to study the root or mother of all Nordic language, the Finnish Swedish. There we can find the true meaning of words like Jud, Jerusalem, Jehovah, Paradise, Ed, Hell. A peculiar key is in fact in the meaning of those basic words is the word Jud that in Swedish men sound, but also Jehovah to give of the court of or the butterfly net. Jerusalem did give the rose of the lamp, and Hell, which means hill or entire entire or complete, opposite than semi. Also, symbols of understanding are turned into meaningless or evil symbols, like, for example, the swastika or swaddle sticker that was the symbol of life, and the sun into a symbol of hate and destruction, or the Ouroboros or snake biting his own tail and representing the life world, and turning it into a symbol of biblical devil that turns man into demons. Or the devil, which for the Christians is a figure that represents evil, and it shows in the form of a man or woman that tempts people to do bad things and possesses the weak, a figure created to justify evil and hate that at the same time frighten people from wanting to know the truth about it. Stories written to scare people into submission to the unknown and rules made to prevent people from seeking the truth are key to understanding that such a system is not any more plausible excuse for justifying the hate and evil we are thought to believe as a natural part of life. The Muslim deception. The Muslim religion is the last monotheistic cult which was also written and developed by the Judeo and Roman Empire in order to control society in the Arab world. By simply creating a common origin linked to Abraham, the Judeo clan could create a parallel religion that imposes the same Semitic rituals and adds, like for the Christians, the dream of an afterlife paradise after the alleged natural suffering of the earthly life. To further control and dominate the Muslim people, the Judeo clan also added the famous Ramadan, a special occurrence in every good Muslim's calendar that sees their inferiority of energies in case of war during all month in which Muslims are not allowed to drink or eat till sundown. So the Muslim religion is somehow the most sophisticated and elaborated to control its society by imposing, like for the Jews, the bloody ritual of circumcision or mutilation of the infants and implementing the praying factor as a necessity that every Muslim must practice several times a day. The Muslims men are also allowed polygamy, so that while Christians are only allowed one wife, and the Jewish supposedly not more than 4, the Muslims instead are allowed to have as many wives alike, and therefore they are also the fastest reproducing ethnicity on our planet, and such a factor is clearly visible by traveling around and seeing the amount of them already populating the entire globe. Also, the Muslims are obliged to circumcise or mutilate themselves and their own children, and such a ritual is the base of their cult or so-called religion. This is also done to hypnotize people with a false vision of rightness and anyway sectarian brotherhood, which supposedly, because without any racial boundaries, should in their heads spread and dominate the entire world, but that in fact blinds people into the illusion of rightness imposed through mutilation and violence towards the children and the weak of spirit as justified acts of indoctrination and justice according to its allegedly holy scripts. Polytheism and the theosophical propaganda. Polytheistic mythologies are also later labeled as pagan cults and often so confused by the wrong interpretation given deliberately by the Judeo clans that have also imposed a strict vision of history aimed to control society. A clear example nowadays is provided by the Theosophical Society, which have for years claimed to be intended to exist for the preservation and protection of all religions, while instead it is deliberately working to re-elaborate and modify stories and aiming to deflect people from the real understanding of what remains in our world in the form of temples and holy cities that precede all Abrahamistic sects. An easy example is shown in the Theosophical Society interpretation of the Hinduism, where they turn the figures' powers around. If you have been to India, for example, you would know that the representation of destruction is refigured in Kali. If you read the Theosophical Society books instead, you will learn that the god of destruction is Shiva. To understand the difference, you must then realize that while the Theosophical Society wants you to think that Shiva, a man, is the destroyer, Hinduism teaches that Kali, the goddess of destruction, is a female. Therefore, the Theosophical Society is inverting the polarity of things. Another example of how Theosophical Society has been working for deception and along the side with the Judeo, later known also as Zionist Society, for the re-elaboration and divulgation of their personally made-up human history in the attempt to bring blood rituals, hate and evil in the consciousness of every body as simple and accepted religious practices and belief. is shown also in the way how we are told to believe that Mayan and Aztec and all ancient civilizations practiced human sacrifices in form of blood and murdering rituals. But when you go traveling through those countries, you can also find out that all those horrifying stories are nearly all complete lies, and if any evidences have been provided to maintain the theory of the use of brutal rituals, in most cases those evidences have been provided by prominent Zionists. The realization of the New Age. The realization of the New Age is what we are coming to. It is clear that this process is requiring the collaboration and help of everybody, and that we can no longer keep on abusing and misusing the resources that keep us in life, and that in order to consolidate and materialize an ultimate society, we must find the way to correct the mistakes and misinterpretation and deliver goodness to the all that surrounds us. A fact that we all understand is that just like cancer cells are growing selfishly and abusing and destroying nature, like so nature shows us that those cancer cells ultimately kill their own host and die. This is one clear example that nature shows us, and that we must learn an important lesson in order to achieve the step to the development of any society that otherwise will ultimately, like the cancer, kill its own host. Like so, we understand that we must find a way to connect the links of evolution and move harmoniously with the cosmos and grow by using and not abusing the surrounding. All living organisms must nourish all their cells in time with nature in order to live and survive. Like so, we must all find the way to nourish our society for the good of everything that reflects its goodness in harmony with the good nature. In our modern times in 2011, everybody who is part of modern society gets an education based on governmental propaganda, specially designed and aimed for the full control of the societies. The history we are told in schools is based and assimilated by the people on the assumption of its alleged truth. By researching the history told in the schools nowadays, we can clearly notice how each country changes its perspective and telling of it to glorify and justify its own actions, and the malicious effects of such a propaganda in the mind of those subjected to it. By this I meant to say that from this point in history, it is natural to doubt even what we read in historical official text regarding any event in our history leading us to this age. With the following, I want to emphasize the fact that it is natural to doubt and to research the truth, and to reach it we must be able to persevere in the path of good, from the root or Swedish God. So do not let religious or nationalistic feelings rule our judgment, but follow the logic and research the stories from all perspectives. As I already clarified, to find the objective of global unity, we must realize the need to evolve from the concept of absolute sureness of everything we have been taught, and instead search and work out the real facts by keeping an open mind to the fact that everywhere society, as we know it is, yes, constantly afflicted by the problems created by the many types of corruption that evolve from its imperfections, but also more or less already set in a course aimed by the people at evolving for the good of itself and its members. Therefore, in this point in history, we must not take for granted what official stories are wanting us to believe before we are able to verify them. We thinking beings need to find a way to rewrite the history for what has truly been, and go forward without destroying what society has already accomplished, but find the way to make it better and in harmony with the nature. So, in this age we are awakening the consciousness of all beings to bring us all to the realization of the universal and cosmic resonance that, just like the sound of the golden bell, echoes and vibrates through our cosmos from the beginning of time, and with his mighty influence brings life to everything that exists. Time has come to reflect on the origin of life and its commune goal and principles of survival. All life in the cosmos is originated by the fusion of elements that interact and live with each other. This is a basic fact that every body that follows logic will re-echo with thinking about it. Just like the fire needs oxygen to burn, and oxygen need to form water, we know that this is a commune factor that unites all, and just like so, we people need also to copulate in order to reproduce. Starting from this principle and examining the universe that surrounds us, we can also find another important key factor for all races and species, which make all living beings sane And this is the fact that all reproduces through the ejaculation or the delivering of the genetic patrimony transferred to an egg that hosts it and nourishes it till it releases it to the outside world. This simple principle is same for all living beings in our cosmos, and this simple fact and the respect to such element is the key that will bring all together. The great saga brought to us by Ior Bock is the key to peace and harmony in the entire universe and beyond. Ior was not only a great storyteller but also the great ambassador of universal understanding and logic, and through his story was able to explain to us the basic principles that help us to unveil the mysteries of the cosmos that surrounds us. In base of the understanding we are now given by or via Ior Bock, we can naturally realize that the veneration of the basic life elements is not only an earth thing, but a common understanding of any natural thinking form of life. This simple understanding he shared with his friends is the missing link to the umbilical cord that brings life to all beings in our cosmos, and to him and his saga we must all be thankful for having chosen to stay forever in our history. Clearly, in our modern world in 2011, we are still bounded by taboos and deception stories that make us afraid to begin to venerate such elements, especially in any earthly society that follow any type of monotheistic religion. And clearly, to understand that we must wake up to reality and make the change, it is the message that Ior Bock was bringing to us all. Thanks to his story, we learn the truth about the basic elements that give us life and the logic that explains and solves many of the mysteries and secrets of our history and cosmos. By fact, according to those so-called earthly monotheistic religions, the sex is a bad and scary thing, and the religious terror-based propaganda is so strongly sculpted in people's minds that a great percentage of them accept falsities like, for example, overpopulation and need for a population reduction program, or even the mutilation of infants and blood-sucking rituals, and justify them because they are labeled as needed things and as part of religious practice. Like so, man is nowadays in 2011 programmed to believe in abstract things in such a drastic way that also a great percentage of those so-called good people are still refusing scientific and historical facts because denied by their own religions. Another clear example of the amount of hate and deception that is fed to our society by the world medias here on Earth is the so-called Palestinian-Israeli conflict, a one-side conflict that sees the constant bombardment of Palestine and the segregation of its people in concentration camps, Warsaw Ghetto style, and the complicity of many of our world leaders to such a brutal and inhumane behavior. Another example of this is shown in the recent massacre of the Freedom Flotilla and the position maintained by world media in the cover-up of such a brutal act of piracy. In 2011, planet Earth come to face great events that will sign its destiny along with the one and all universe that surrounds it and beyond. After the nuclear disaster of Fukushima of the 11/3/2011, all human and the animal and flora species of Earth are under a great threat of extinction. On March 11, 2011, after the tsunami hit Japan, the world was shown pictures of the destruction and told of several nuclear power plants had been safely shut down. After 2 days, while all the world news agencies was showing the devastating explosions of the Fukushima nuclear reactors blowing to the air what was in reality tons of radioactive particles, the world was told that it was all under control, and what we were seeing was only steam from some hydrogen explosions in the upper floors of the reactors. It became nearly immediately evident for some of us that someone had decided to deliberately dump tons of heavily radioactive particles in the air and ocean, and the world governments were covering up the truth and deliberately allowed the situation to get worse by letting the same company responsible for the disaster manage the melting down plans, while it actually was already known that they were not only hiding the truth regarding the situation but also deliberately dumping tons of highly radioactive waters in the ocean, and had no way to properly respond to the situation of nuclear meltdowns, so even less than the Fukushima, where the meltdowns were in 3 to 6 separate reactors. After nearly 4 months of nuclear meltdown, the whole world is coming closer to face its own ignorance and the deceptions, and to face their absurd beliefs, to realize the all truth. At the same time as we humans come all to face each other and the all-universe civilization come to face its own creations and the fears they have created that must be shattered by sharing and working them out together before they would bring about the total destruction of life. To ensure the continuation of itself, a living organism must enjoy life, and this is even larger than universal. As described previously when talking about the creation of life organisms, all of them are clearly bounded by the common factor that in order to maintain them alive and capable to survive, we, like all sane living things, chose to adapt ourselves to our surrounding and work according to our abilities or possibilities for making life more comfortable in order to being able to enjoy life. It is only when we jump the so-called animal line into the humanoid one that in many cases we come away from the harmonic concept of nature and we begin to create our own societies, sometimes going against nature and where we impose unnecessary restriction, allegedly in order to maintain the status quo of things. Wars are also another insane practice conducted generally with the aims of population reduction and economic speculations. Such practice that tearing society apart is usually organized by people for the purpose of gaining money and power positions, with its obscene horror bringing it indiscriminate death and devastation that with the help of its propaganda machine glorifies its insane use and perpetuates the chain of hate that imprisons the consciousness of those who believe in justify war and in most cases making them believe in its foul rightness for peace. We must find a way to end all wars and relearn the lessons that history teach us if we want to evolve in being accepted as peaceful and intelligent beings capable to integrate with the beauty of our cosmos in balance with nature. Now we have come to a point where it is necessary that instead of letting our own greed and egotism destroy everything that surrounds us, we must all open our minds to let the dream of paradise be realized. Life is joy or else is sickness that has to be cured. All natural living creatures have right to existence, and in a good mind is the duty of the strong to help and protect the weak. Clearly an evolved society must be based on common understanding that share is goodness with the rest, in harmony with the nature, and clearly now, for the first time in our modern history of planet Earth, we all must unite and work together to find a solution before it will be too late for all. We must now begin to help each other and therefore assure the happiness of all beings in peace and harmony with the nature. This is something that must be done and supported by the governments and by its people in order to achieve a developing society that is forever growing and spreading only its goodness. The cosmos and the life rule. The beauty and the many mysteries of our universe are now being shown and told for all. As we all come to understand the essence of harmony and well-being, we come to understand the necessity to evolve and therefore expand our consciousness and perspectives to the potentialities of our universe and beyond. It is time to take a leap into a cosmic dimension of understanding. To explore the powers and potentiality of our mind, body, and soul, we must find the way to enjoy our being and the well-being of our surrounding in an harmonious way. The idea of cherishing life is the concept that will unite all cosmic beings, and to understand it, we must drink the water of life to fully comprehend the beauty of creation. This simple understanding is the key. As we approach the ultimate understanding of the divine, we are all taken by surprise as we explore its entirety from the start. The realization of ultimate solution to achieve it is already stored in the genetic code of each being, and it is now a matter of using it to find the guidance to harmony. The essential need to unite all is a part of evolution that can and must be pushed forward in the consciousness of everyone to accelerate its action and bring us forward to the ultimate place for our mind, body, and soul. A place where every living being is free from pain and sickness and where everyone is living and feeding only the good of life. Imagine a cosmic beinghood where every living being gets helped by this system. Imagine all universe is free from hate and deception. Imagine being able to travel through the cosmos without any fear of disrupting the peace and being able to learn and share all good things. Imagine It is in nature to cling to something just like the suns, the stars, and the moons cling to the heaven, and the grains, plants, and trees cling to soil. Beings, animals, and insects need to cling to life. Clinging to what is right transforms the cosmos and perfects it. This is an old wisdom that must be remembered in order to find the strength to persevere in the path to global enlightenment. To bring and find unity and peace in everybody's mind, we must bring forward our goodness and the wisdom. The projection of ourselves is always a key to understanding of our surrounding life, so we can realize that all that we feed comes to existence. Here an example that we can all understand. Imagine this. If in front of you there is several bonfires which are burning different materials, some of those materials are poisons, and now for the first time you are realizing that. Everybody is aware of the fact that burning poison in the open air is harmful, so what would you do? Keep feeding the poison fire or feed only the ones which are not harmful? The answer should be quite clear, just clear. It's the consequence of the actions. When we will stop feeding the bad fires, the harmful fumes and materials will stop fumigating us with their poisons and die out. It is only the fires that we feed that burn. On this principle we must begin our understanding of basic logic that will bring about the needed changes for the evolution to the next dimension, where the purity of spirit is also the one of the body, and all evil is dead just like the fires we have stopped feeding. The birth of the crystal era. All beings need to unite and stand for changes that can bring civilization and nature to a constantly developing state of being and restore the harmony and beauty that our cosmos shows us in its greatness. It is evident that in order to achieve such a status, we must start to reform the system so that it can become transparent, like the crystal. Because we decide to keep the good technologies and to use them for the good of the environment and of all living beings, which are in constant danger because of the amount of harmful poisons that civilization have ignorantly been spreading around, and the need to remove it all and to help those who have beings suffering in consequence to it, we must find a way to use the technologies for reinsuring society by sharing the knowledge, and use the technologies that can bring us and our surroundings to an harmonious state of being. It is so important to ensure that those politicians who represent the people in the political arenas would be serving as example for the rest of the society, and that their public service time or mandate would allow students to learn by following the life and activities of those public figures. Because of the corruption that is taking over in most public offices, it is now needed to create some basic laws that can stop the corruption and improve and guarantee the good system in life to continue to blossom and grow in harmony. One basic law that should be implemented in those places where such a phenomenon is manifested will be the implementation of the duty for the politicians to carry a badge that would record their activities during their mandate. This would assure the society with true transparency and bring more confidence to the people, and at the same time the politicians would be true teachers free from temptations and political sins. The creation of a crystal society, one that is truly transparent and radiant, is the way to guarantee peace and harmony to everything. This is another important point in this process of enlightenment that is essential to the practical side of its functions. In the concept of terrestrial paradise is included the vision of an harmonic and peaceful cosmos that serves its peace with its magnificence and greatness. At this time in history, to be achieving such a greatness is possible only if we can all work for it and start to support each other instead of following only the aspiration of personal conquest and glory, and instead share them with and for the goodness and prosperity of all. The blessing of creation must be a concept understood for its entirety and shared in a common vision of well-being, key for the reforms needed for the creation of the crystal system, a system that, because of its transparency, can educate and inspire all beings. It is basic to understanding that every living being must be made able to enjoy and develop that what he is naturally gifted and orientated for, and that such an help to society will bring about more happiness and well-being to all goodness that surrounds it. After such a system begins to work, it is guaranteed that both the environment and the society would experience an improvement that would spiral up all into the blossoming of paradise, or terrestrial paradise, where its people will find again confidence in the system and the path to true knowledge and to cosmic harmony. If we reflect on the idea of such development, we can also estimate that when it will begin, it would not take long before we can transform this planet and assuring its continuation as terrestrial paradise, where the people will find the path to unity by following their natural orientations and guidance provided by a system that is made for the good of its members in harmony with the all. We will also learn the magic of the stars, and once again will be connected through them. Soon we will be able to reach a state of being that is cosmic and able to explore life and all its sides in beauty and travel through time and the entire cosmos as messengers and keepers of peace and harmony. To being able to reach such a great state of being, we must evolve into a living organism, constituted by the billions of cells which we already are, but simply connected as a good living organism, living in respect and harmony with the nature that hosts us. The key element to the well-being of all, and we must persevere in the path for enlightenment and transform the world that we will remold into a flower-like place that with its beauty and perfection will bring harmony to the all. The missing link. Introduction to the life pool or devil in the Bock saga. The missing link for mankind is manifested in the same water of life that bring us to the wisdom and magic of nature and the cosmos. For centuries we have been searching for the idea of truth, and society have been forbidden to learn it by means of torture and murder carried out by the army of the various religious leaders under the form of terrible inquisitions and crusades. For centuries, the information system has been working to prevent people from investigating the truth by imposing laws that forbid the worshipping of sex and allow instead the mutilation of children and the arrest, castration, and many other forms of insane punishment for those who practice homosexual posture or acts. Still nowadays in 2011, we can see the effects of this in the unnatural and illogic behavior of many inhabitants from both first, second, and third world countries. The taboos and phobias that emerges in the behavior of many is the direct effect derived from the indoctrination to such unnatural and inhumane religions such as those monotheistic ones that, among other forms of sexual repressions, after many centuries still forbids and punish homosexuality. The missing link, in fact, is the snake biting his own tail, or devil or life pool. This is in fact a ritual practiced every day by everybody in paradise at or paradise time, and it consists by drinking one's own water of life, sperm or sev. The idea of doing so is intended to be done to respect and worship life, enjoy our sexuality, and find the tune of harmony with nature. The water of life is what creates every material being. It holds the power of creation and the genetic imprint of our ancestors, and much more. By doing the will or the life will, we can become more concentrated in what we have to do in a more harmonious way, and at the same time we celebrate and enjoy life. The realization of this in a material sense is shown by the consequence of such action. By doing it, we become our true self, and this simple act is key to open the Pandora box of knowledge and face the fact that in a natural environment and state of mind, whatever we do is what we ourselves are doing. This realization is the first step to harmony and understanding. The respect and worship of life is clearly at the base of any truly evolved society, and it's the key to the door that will deliver us to the highest levels of understanding and well-being. For the delivering of such a key, we must be thankful for the saga left by Ior Bock, and for those which have been seen the logic of his saga and shared it around, and we must go on sharing it to bring paradise back on our planet and to peace and harmony to the all that is creation. The Lotus. Paradis and the Bock saga. Intro. The story that follows is the saga left by Ior Bock, which will make mankind understand and unveil the secrets of our history and to find the lost key to terrestrial paradise.